Although many people call them dab chicks, I prefer the correct name, little grebes. Before I introduce you to the subject of this week's episode, the little grebe, I'd like to give you an alternative name for these beautiful little aquatic birds, dabchick. Now, although I know they're quite commonly called dabchick in many quarters, I've had the impression for a long time that it's not a popular name with serious bird watchers. And to be honest, I much prefer their real name anyway. So, for the purposes of this week's episode of Wildlife Wednesday, I'm going to stick to their correct name, little grebe. Although they do bear a superficial resemblance to ducks, they are in no way related to the other species you will generally find them sharing the water with. And most of the time, that's where you will find them, on the water. You'll rarely see them on land. One of the reasons for this being that their legs are so far back in their bodies, they're extremely awkward when attempting to walk. So for that reason, they tend to stick to their natural habitat. I've been a little grebe fan ever since I first became interested in wildlife photography. I think they're one of the most charismatic birds we have in Ireland. They're also one of the most photogenic and a target species for many photographers. As their name suggests, little grebes are just that, little. In fact, they're the smallest of all the grebes. I have to admit I have a particular fondness for these guys. I sometimes call them my now you see me, now you don't bird. This is due to the fact that as soon as you see them, they seem to disappear right before your eyes, having once again dived in search of food. They then reappear somewhere else, usually where you least expect to see them. You really have to keep your eyes well peeled because the search for food underwater is a continuous process. They dive in search of small fish such as minnows, insects and water snails. Occasionally, if they need to dive a little deeper than usual, you might see them make a little jump before diving with a splash into the water. Just like we would when diving from the edge of a swimming pool or off a rock into the sea. They're excellent swimmers when in pursuit of their prey, but can also use underwater vegetation to hide behind and ambush their unsuspecting victims. Diving is also used as a defense mechanism. If at any stage they feel threatened, they immediately dive for cover and will stay underwater for as long as the threat persists, raising just their head above water to see if the coast is clear, re-emerging only when they feel totally safe to do so. They're the most common grebe in Ireland, and also they're the most widely distributed. During the breeding season, check out any body of water with dense vegetation and remember to listen as well as look, because if you can't see them, they may well still be present, hidden away in the vegetation at the water's edge. And by listening, it's very possible you'll get to hear their high-pitched song, which often gives them away. Little grebes have a longer breeding season than most Irish birds, beginning in February and running right into September. But most egg laying takes place from late April to late June. And because of this extra long breeding season, in a successful year, little grebes can often have 3 broods. The nest is a kind of floating platform of vegetation and is generally concealed wherever vegetation lies at the edges of the river or lake it's built on. This can make it vulnerable to changes in water levels due to flooding after heavy rains or drought during extremely hot weather, when the nest can become stranded. Little grebes generally lay 4 to 6 eggs, which are incubated by both the male and the female bird, with the chicks emerging after about 20 days. The young hatchlings leave the nest soon after hatching, but the parents continue to care for and feed them for somewhere between 30 and 40 days. After the chicks have hatched, both parents and chicks tend to become more visible, and sometimes the chicks can even be seen being ferried around on the backs of their parents. This is the must-have image for photographers who follow these little beauties. After about 45 days, they're able to fly, but again, just as you don't often see them walking, only now and again will you see them flying, and if you do, it's generally just for short distance, quite low above the water. I've recently been keeping an eye on a pair locally who started out a couple of weeks ago with 2 chicks, but for the last few days it appears that only one has survived. But at this stage the signs are good, and I think it may well survive to adulthood. It's being well cared for by both parents, and over the last couple of days has been diving for short periods itself. In this week's slideshow, I've included quite a few shots of this little family group, along with others from along the River Dodder and surrounding areas, so I hope you enjoy it. Thanks again for watching Wildlife Wednesday, folks. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and if you did, I'd be grateful if you'd give it a like and subscribe to my channel. And if you do, don't forget to ring the bell so you're notified every time I upload new content. Till next week, stay safe, stay healthy, wash your hands and wear a mask where necessary, while continuing to maintain social distancing. We're not out of the woods yet. Take care, folks. Bye.